Is the Bears football program about to raid the cabinet of one of their closest geographic rivals? Maybe. We'll talk about it on Locked On Baylor.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello there. Welcome to another episode of Locked On Baylor. I am your host, Cam Stewart of ESPN Central Texas and the Rogue Media Sports Network. Thank you for making it your first listen today and every day. We're taking a look at how this basketball roster is shaping up and whether it's done or not, because a lot of teams were active this week. And then what I mentioned in the open there, are we going to see Baylor football raiding one of their old-time rivals? That could well be the case. At least one reporter thinks so. And we take a look at the one sport that is still going on for Baylor, and really just a few athletes, but one of them has an incredible story. We'll get to all of that. It is June 6th, which is a big, big anniversary in American history. 80 years ago today was D-Day. And I know that's nothing to do with Baylor, but that's a huge, huge day. And just like we do on Veterans Day or Memorial Day, it's important to kind of recognize the sacrifices that a lot of people made, in like thousands of people made in the most just war in history, I guess. Like the start of justice began today. And it's an incredible story. If you haven't heard, like the June 5th, they're staying in the boats. It comes back to Baylor because there was some great stuff about it in the World War II Museum, which is in New Orleans, which I went to the last time Baylor went to the Sugar Bowl, which is right behind me if you're watching on YouTube. So anyway, just wanted to take a minute. I'm a big history nerd, and that's a really solemn and important day. But looking at Baylor side of things, shall we? We had on the Matt Mosley show this week, we talked to Bill Armstrong, one of the new assistants on the Baylor basketball staff. He comes from Link Academy, which is where Jacoby Walter went, and it's one of those elite prep schools. He was there a couple years after being an assistant in the SEC for 15 years. He coached alongside Will Wade most recently at LSU, and now they're both back in the college basketball coaching game. But I found this a very interesting hire because the prep circuit is so massive today, even more so than it was 5 or 10 years ago. Like all the top players are coming from one of these academies, and that's what Baylor's going after now. It's not like it was 6 or 7 years ago where they were getting people from Katy High and Duncanville and things like that. It's not the way it is anymore. So I found that very interesting. And I asked him about the similarities between his job, where he was recruiting a new team every year, and his role here at Baylor.
And looking at the team you've got this year, we mentioned the names and the potential styles that they could be playing, but we had a couple days ago the deadline for players to remove their name from the NBA draft, and of course scores of them did. And so it's almost like this second wind in the transfer portal with so many talented players, basically putting their names back in the portal. And so has that something that you guys as a staff have paid attention to? And are there still open roster spots for you guys to fill for this year's team?
Yeah, I think that you always see that and, kind of keep up with, especially the teams in the Big 12, who they're signing after that. I think that for the most part, we're done recruiting for this year. But, we want to see kind of who everybody's putting together, and you kind of play in your head, okay, this person came back here and they signed him. And I think Kansas State might have just gotten somebody today. So you kind of, adding all that up and looking at what you're going to go up against. But for the most part, we're just going to, focus on these guys that are here for the summertime and, get to work and get them prepared for what's coming during the season.
Not too different, which is what I suspected, which is why I asked that. It's just crazy. It shows you what the high school basketball circuit is like these days, that he can step back into. He was a recruiter for years, obviously, goes into coaching at high school at the highest high school level, and is even more of a recruiter there. And now he's back in the college game recruiting. So I think that's a huge advantage, especially with the fact that you just lost your two best recruiters in Alvin Brooks and John Jacobs. I'm talking the boots on the ground guys, the ones who knew both the high school and international scene like the back of their hand. That's a nice pickup for Baylor, and I think that should give us some confidence there. Scott Drew knows how to pick them, first off. I also asked Bill about what we've kind of seen the last couple of weeks. We saw the deadline, I believe, a little over a week ago for guys to enter their name into the NBA draft. And those who withdrew their name most of them are back in the transfer portal. So it's like the second win to the portal. And I was one who thought Baylor could do with getting an extra body in there. Ugana Onyenso was the one I liked. He ends up at Kansas State with Jerome Tang, which actually Bill will talk about. But I asked him, I said, is that something that you guys were monitoring? And are we going to see some names added to this roster?
And Bill, coming from the prep ranks, obviously the prep circuit is more important than it's ever been in terms of those high-end high school talents. And so I don't mean this as a bad thing, but you go from head coach at Link Academy to assistant here at Baylor. You just talked about the guys you needed to sign when you were at Link. So how similar are these two jobs in terms of the recruiting trail from going from a national high school program to going to a big-time national college program?
Very similar, the prep school, maybe it's similar in that it's extremely competitive because there's only, a certain amount of kids that are out there that want to come to prep school that are good enough to help you compete for a national championship. Just like, here at Baylor, there's only a certain group of guys that can help us win a national championship, and being able to identify those guys and then, build a relationship with them and get them to want to come to your program. And that's all very similar maybe more in the prep school circuit, because you can do more as far as the NCAA rules won't allow you to be out at every event and things of that nature, where you can do that on the prep school circuit.
Done and dusted. They've closed up shop. What you see is what you get. And that's still pretty good for this Baylor team, but it's something I'm going to have to sleep on a little bit to see if this depth is going to be quite good enough for the lofty expectations that this team has this year. We'll certainly be revisiting that throughout the summer. But there you heard it from the horse's mouth there. They're closed up shop. Jared Nunes had a cryptic tweet a few weeks ago, right before the dead period. It didn't come to fruition in terms of a commitment. The guys are on campus now, and this is the team that they've got. So get ready for it. It's just like Hoosiers. This is your team. No, we want Jimmy. This is your team. And when I want to go see my team, I use Gametime. It's the only place I go to buy tickets. I did the other ticket places for years, and all I got was miserable. Like, it was just a terrible buying experience. The hidden fees, the tough transfers, all of that, not the case at Gametime. Okay, because you go on the Gametime website and you see the all-in price right away. They say, hey, it might look a little more expensive than what you see at these other websites, but this is the actual price. They're just going to pull a fast one on you. So you get to see that. You've got flash deals and zone deals going throughout the week. You get to see the views from your seats before you hit purchase, and they've got the lowest price guarantee, or Gametime's going to credit you 110% of the difference. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry, which I like. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Again, terms apply. Create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, for $20 off your first purchase. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Looking at football, I saw an interesting tweet from our pal, friend of the program, Will Turboff, Bears Illustrated, 24/7 or 247, however you say it. Turboff has his boots on the ground, and he is all over the state of Texas. And he is the Bears insider, man. Like, he's going to these spring footballs practices and camps with some big time high school teams. He has got connects with all the coaches and the players' prospects. He's got his finger on the pulse, is what I'm trying to say. And he put out an interesting tweet, I thought, a few days ago, and it was in regards to a team that he does not cover. It was actually kind of in regards to SMU, because they had a 4-star quarterback signed, Keelan Russell, who flipped the Duncanville quarterback. Yeah, extremely good talent. 2025 kid. He flipped from SMU to Alabama. And you're like, okay, Cam, what does that have anything to do with us? Well, Turboff quotes it and says, with as many Baylor SMU battles as there's been in this cycle, Russell's flip is expected to impact the Bears' chances with several Mustang commits and targets. Now, he doesn't say it overtly there, but I think the reading between the lines, this is very simple. SMU had a quarterback, a 4-star quarterback committed to them that most years they would have no shot at. And that's no real knock against SMU. This is a 4-star from Duncanville. Alabama sounds more like it, okay? And what I'm guessing is Keelan Russell was doing a lot of recruiting himself for the Ponies, for some of his teammates at Duncanville, for the great talent that comes out of the Metroplex. I'm willing to bet he was doing some good recruiting for the folks up there at University Park at SMU. And now he's gone. And their best recruiter, from what we've heard, is gone. The actual recruiting coach, not Russell. The actual recruiter is gone. And so it's no wonder that Will Turboff is saying the floodgates might open here. And especially because of the fact that great recruiter, the coach, was Keenan Hall, who is now the associate head coach at Baylor and is the main recruiter at Baylor. And we've already seen the Keenan Hall effect just take over this recruiting class in 2025 and 2026. And I mean, Turboff was right on the money in that there are a lot of guys who are either committed to SMU or are looking at SMU and Baylor, guys who are committed to SMU, but also have Baylor on their trail. There is a lot of overlap, especially in 2025 for these guys. And so I took the liberty of looking through 24/7 to see all these guys who are, on both planes, right? SMU, Baylor, have had interest, committed, whatever it may be. And boy, there's a lot of them, especially at the skill positions, especially at wide receiver. Specifically, that's the one I saw the most. The one I'll start with is Bryson Jones, who is a guy from Lone Star up in Frisco. He was not big on, like, really warm on either of them, but he has done a visit to SMU, and it's one of his top offers. He does have I think a visit scheduled for Baylor as well. So that's one to look out for. Again, that talent up there in the Metroplex. Well, one of the big ones that I saw from the wide receiver position is Dalen Singleton. Now let's keep this in mind. Wide receiver. Okay. He's from DeSoto. Okay. He committed in September of 2023, right around the same time Keelan Russell committed to SMU. So that is his number one, obviously made the commitment. So that's what's number one listed there. Number 2 is Baylor. And I mean, you talk about a talent-laden program in DeSoto. This kid's a 4-star receiver, and he's just among the mix of the biggest prospects on his team. 4-star receiver, 5'10", 165, can just absolutely burn you down the field. He's a track runner. His 200 time is under 22 seconds. That's incredible. Obviously, they won the state championship this year, DeSoto. They destroyed that team that they played in the state championship. They beat them by like 50 points in 6A. He was incredible. Caught 56 passes, 1,200 yards, 17 touchdowns, and 22 yards per reception. And this was after like a year where he wasn't playing much as a sophomore. You could see the potential, but he wasn't playing a ton. Both years they won the state championship, by the way. Javar Thomas is another one I am looking at. He's from the Houston area, but he had SMU on the list. Now he's a little bit more warm towards Baylor. Jamar Chaney is a big key in that, obviously coaching the defensive line. Thomas is going to visit on June 12th. So that's one to look out for. One that Will Turboff has gone out to look at is Caleb Burns. So that's someone that obviously Baylor was kind of hot on anyway. He's a 3-star linebacker from Falls, so Cypress. And he has committed to SMU. That's what That's the look. That's what they've said. Or excuse me, not committed. They have him as 100%. Crystal ball. Sorry, not committed, technically. And one of the other ones that's warm on his trail and he has a visit scheduled for this weekend, Baylor. Baylor, baby. Caleb Burns is going to be here this weekend, days after the quarterback of the future, the guy that was going to take SMU back to greatness, has decommitted from SMU. The final one I want to highlight, and boy, this could be a big one too. Fellow by the name of Michael Turner. Okay, 4-star running back from Richland High School in North Richland Hills, so right up around that Fort Worth, Dallas area. He is like on 3 had him at 99% to SMU. But let's look at this again. The quarterback of the future is gone. The running backs coach that would have started recruiting him at SMU is now at Baylor. And this kid has the stars and he has the numbers. I wanted to read this quote from his head coach because his head coach isn't afraid to compliment Michael Turner. They spelled compliment wrong because he knows Turner won't let it go to his head. Michael has always looked like a grown man, but in his junior season, he played like one. His ability is through the roof, but I'm just as proud about his giving heart and the kind. And for just under 900 yards, 12 touchdowns. 8 yards a carry. Man, sign him up. Keenan on board. All of a sudden, like I talk about the floodgates opening for a basketball standpoint with people pulling their names out of the NBA draft, there could be, names coming back into the fray here for Baylor football just because of Keelan Russell, the quarterback from Duncanville, flipping his commitment from SMU to Kalen DeBoer at Alabama. Things could be really buzzing, especially here in the next couple of weeks. Yeah, like I mentioned, some of these guys, including Caleb Burns, are visiting this weekend. There's a lot more the next weekend. It's a big official visit weekend. And then towards the end of the month, typically, is when you'll see the camps. And so those won't be the seniors, but sophomores and juniors. You'll see some commitments out of that. Obviously, we'll cover it, but I'll let you know at the time. Take it with a grain of salt because of how young these kids are. But you're going to start to see a lot of Baylor football recruiting news. So might be worth it to have Turboff back on the show. Now I'm thinking out loud. But yeah, that is, I've talked about it all recruiting season long of Baylor's not competing with, A&M or Oklahoma for the most part. They're competing with TCU, Tech, SMU. And to have one of those competitors potentially have a hole in the ship, I think that's big news for Baylor. Couple months before we get the season back rolling again. And we obviously have football season to look forward to in a couple months, but there is one sport still going on. And really it's just a few athletes that are still playing or playing because you don't play track, you compete in track, representing Baylor. And yeah, it is track and field. We were talking about Alexis Brown mainly. She is up there in Eugene, Oregon, Tracktown, USA. She's going for a national championship. She does the long jump as well as the relays in the sprinting aspect of things. And we had her on the Mosley Show this week as well. But she wrote a great Champions Tribune article, which is like the Players Tribune, but for Baylor, a couple of weeks ago about her journey. And it's really amazing. And I know these quote unquote non-revenue sports, basically anything outside of football and basketball, some of these stories can go unnoticed, but they're really incredible. I mean, they're really incredible. Brown is from Kennedale, but she started a career at Florida and just ran into all kinds of injuries, had a bad back injury, had some vertebrae that were messed up. And then she comes back and she all of a sudden has something wrong with her foot. And then that goes on a while. And she had this something that was undiagnosed. She basically had an extra bone in her foot. and was running like real elite track. So she mentioned in here, she was like, I was basically hurt every year. Like I didn't get to compete. And as soon as she kind of got out of one injury and was back to quote unquote being her normal self, then COVID hits and there's no track to run. She has to go home, work out by herself. And she mentions it in here. It's incredible. She's talking about her faith, the mental health aspect of all this, the depression that she went through. And she ends up going and transferring to Baylor, which was something that a school that she had looked at before. Coach Michael Ford had recruited her, but she told us on the radio, she said, I was a little hard-headed. I was a little stubborn. I wanted to get out of Texas. I was going to go make my name somewhere else. That's why I went to Florida. And when I came back, like that was the first one on my list. Gotta reach out to Coach Ford. Gotta look at Baylor again. And she has had this incredible season to finish off her college career. Not over yet. She's again up there in Tracktown as we speak, as I'm speaking to you, and is now competing for a national championship. She was I think, Women's Performer of the Year in track in the Big 12. I might be getting the verbiage wrong on that one, but basically the MVP for women's track in the Big 12. She was fantastic this year, again, both in the relays and in the long jump. And so I think she was like wondering if she was ever going to run again, play the sport that she had grown to love. And it's just really inspiring now to see her, at the highest stage. And if she gets the right qualifications here in Oregon, her season ain't done, because she can have a real shot at the Olympics. Like the Olympic trials are next. And boy, I mean, for the tradition that Baylor has in track and sending people to the Olympics, that's a story in and of itself, that they've got someone going for it. But the whole story behind this is just incredible. Like it really took me aback. Alexis Brown's story, to think, she might not be running again, to potentially being in the Olympics next month is just insane to me. And it's another great story of why we love college athletics, truly. And for those who don't love the transfer portal and didn't like that COVID shut things down, like I didn't either, but sometimes there are positive things that come out of this. A runner was able to come home and salvage a career in track, and I'm sure do a lot of great things for her life. She talked about the positivity wall that she keeps, where she's just pinning her goals and the things she wants to achieve on the wall. So here is to hoping that she gets another one of those crossed off here this weekend. I know we'll all be pulling for her up there in Oregon, but just a fascinating story. I would definitely recommend checking that out in the Champions Tribune. Really great stuff. But anyway, wishing the best of luck to Alexis and the runners for Baylor. And hopefully we're seeing her in Paris as well. That would be just outstanding. That would be so awesome. And hope that the things that she's going for this weekend are on the positivity board. Definitely hope that as well. Anyway, let me know. Let me know what you think about that story, and send your thoughts to Alexis down in the comments below. Let me know what you think about Baylor basketball being done, closing up shop for the summer. Are they going to be too thin? Let me know down in the comments. And do you even want to raid SMU's closet? Most years, no, but they're on a pretty good heater recruiting wise the last couple of years. So I would say yes. Anyway, thank you guys for us for the week. Unless there is something breaking, we will always bring that to you. We're the only place that's giving you nothing but Baylor exclusive content, and it's not coming straight from Baylor. So we do appreciate you guys for following along, especially here in the summer months. But be sure to like and subscribe, leave a comment, find us on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts, and we will see you next week on Locked On Baylor.